Hey guys, Mike here from Lunch Money Comics with another comic book roundup video for you. This is where I show off all the cool comics and comic related things I found recently in strange and unusual places, things that I have not yet had a chance to talk about on the channel. And man, do I have stuff from all over the place. I have stuff from flea markets, yard sales, antique shops. I have stuff from LCSs, comic book shows. Before I show you all this cool stuff, you guys know the drill. If you like this sort of stuff and you want to support the channel, head on down and please hit that like button. It really does help. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't already, and you can always follow me on Instagram under Lunch Money Comics IG. So let's actually start with a bit of a mail call. Viewers of the channel often send me things, but what's cool about all the things I'm going to show you right now is they all came from people who are also comic book YouTubers. And this first person actually sent me all this stuff from Australia. Yes, this came all the way from down under, sent to me by David of Still Only 35 Cents. Now, David is not only an excellent YouTuber, he has one of the best collections I've ever seen. I recently did a room tour of my basement and I challenged David to do the same. And man, did he not disappoint. I had no idea how extensive his collection was. And for those of you that like slab books, unbelievable what this guy has. So he's not only a big time collector, but a very lovely person, a really nice, generous guy. He sent me this stuff out of the blue just because he knew I would like it. He sent it all the way from Australia. Now, he knows that I like Nightcrawler. Everyone knows I like Nightcrawler. I might have mentioned it 100 or 200 times on the channel. So he sent me some Nightcrawler themed books. He sent me this one here, Excalibur number 62. I love the Excalibur series because it was the series that had Nightcrawler when I was growing up as a kid. He also sent me this awesome Marvel team-up featuring Spider-Man and Nightcrawler, two of my favorite characters. This is also a 12 pence UK version. You see this is number 89. That's very cool. Definitely didn't have the pence version. In general, I like the X-Men. He sent me X-Men number 20 from the Hickman run, showing an awesome Nimrod cover. He also sent me this one here. This is the back of this book. This is Excalibur number 3, I believe. Yes, Excalibur number 3. But he sent it to me backwards because the back of this book has this awesome Nightcrawler drawing by, Neary and Davis, longtime Excalibur artists. Very cool. Thought that was excellent. And of course, I always talk about the Marvel trading cards I loved as a kid. And this is really exciting, guys. He sent me a graded Nightcrawler card from the very first Marvel trading card series done by Impel in 1990. This is awesome. This is a graded 8 near mint. This is by GMA Grading Company. It's got a little QR code on the back. This is my favorite Nightcrawler card because it's the first one I ever had, and it is from the first series. So this is cool. It's graded. I've wanted a copy of this card graded for a long time. So David, this is awesome. Thank you so much for these very generous gifts. I did not expect this, guys. It was a complete surprise. That is super cool. I got a call from my local comic book store, His and Her Comics, saying there was a package waiting for me. And there was a box, and inside there were 2 comic books and a card. This is the card, which is actually kind of homemade. And it says one-of-a-kind creation by Colleen. So I'm not sure who Colleen is, but I'm guessing she's associated with one of the 2 guys of the YouTube channel, JAB's Expensive Paper. Jab's Expensive Paper, 2 guys. They actually consulted me when they were starting their YouTube channel for advice, and I gave them some pointers. So as a thank you, they sent me this lovely card right here. And this card was written by Juan. And Juan is actually from Mexico. And that is maybe why he sent me these 2 books. I mentioned on my channel that I collect foreign comic books as well. And he sent me 2 Spanish language comic books. But they're not just any books. These are clearly X-Men related books. There's actually multiple stories in each. But the cover story in both of these are very notable. First one, of course, this is the Nightcrawler limited series, his first limited series from 1985, done by Dave Cockrum. Famous swashbuckling Nightcrawler going interdimensional. One of my favorite reads of all time, and I have it in Spanish right here. How cool is that? And the other one is a book I've talked about quite a bit on my channel. This is Life Death, which is a storyline by Chris Claremont, of course, art by Barry Windsor Smith, which depicts sort of the budding romance and guilt felt by these characters, Forge and Storm. Very cool story. One of my favorite Chris Claremont stories, actually. How cool is that? So Jab's Expensive Paper, awesome comic book channel, guys. Definitely check them out. And then the last one actually came from another person that started the channel and asked me for advice. They're called Bay Rays Comics. It's a guy named Barry. And Barry, out of the blue, sent me this box. I picked it up at my LCS. And it was this. This is a obviously Rocketeer Funko Pop. Now, here's the thing, guys. I'm not a huge Funko Pop fan. I do have several of them. My kids do as well. I'm just saying I don't really collect them. That being said, this is awesome. I love the Rocketeer. I love Dave Stevens. I didn't even know there was a Funko Pop of this character. He wrote me a really nice thank you letter on the back. And of course, you guys can see, yes, I do love the Rocketeer. As a matter of fact, today was a very gloomy day. And what movie did I just watch with the kids? The Rocketeer. They actually requested it. It still holds up after all these years. So, Bay Rays Comics, thank you so much for sending me this. My daughter loves this. This is probably going to end up in her room. And yeah, that's super cool. Guys, as usual, I'll put links down in my description to all the people I mentioned. Still only 35 cents. Jab's Expensive Paper and Bay Rays Comics. They are definitely worth taking a look at. And the last gift I want to show you guys is actually one from my sister. I recently visited her in Portland, Oregon. She gave me a gift that I forgot to show on my channel at the time. And it's actually these. She was at a local antique shop going through some like comic books and magazines and things like that, looking for something for me. And she found these bookmarks. They're from 1986. I thought they were cool, guys. They're retro. They're from the 80s. I thought they were pretty fun. She thought of me, so that makes them extra special. So all sorts of fantastic gifts from some fantastic people. Thank you to every single person. You certainly don't need to send me stuff, guys, but I definitely appreciate it. So now I want to show you some things that I got at yard sales. Now I hear down in the comments all the time, guys, people tell me I'm really lucky and that whenever they go to yard sales, they don't find anything good. I'm not that lucky either. I only show you guys the hits and not the misses. Usually I go to hundreds of yard sales and I only show you, the 4, 5, or 6 places I find comic books at. However, that being said, guys, this fall has been particularly brutal. I've gone to a lot of yard sales and flea markets. I've been going out pretty much every single weekend as long as the weather was nice, and I've been getting skunked every weekend. I've had basically, the worst luck I've ever had on Lunch Money Comics. So I just want to let you guys know that I'm just like everyone else. I still have real bad luck. The key is persistence. Just keep going over and over and over again. And that is why I have anything to show you guys. So let's start with a cool pile right here. I actually saw this advertised on Facebook about this yard sale, and they mentioned several things that were comic book related. So I went over there and I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't find anything sort of traditional, but I did find some stuff worth picking up and worth showing to you guys right now. I just mentioned I don't love Funko Pops. Well, it depends. If they're really cheap and they're really cool, I will often pick them up. And that's why I got these. Here we have 2 figures from the Spider-Man Homecoming movie. We have Spider-Man in his homemade suit, and we have sort of casual Tony Stark. Both are bobbleheads, and they were $1 each. For that price, guys, I'm happy to pick these up. It doesn't really matter. But they also had a ton of manga. Now, I'm not into manga or anime very much, but I have a lot of friends who are. And as I started grabbing this stuff, which I knew nothing about, I realized I could get a pretty good bundle deal. So I'm going to show these to you. Just know, I don't know what I'm talking about at all. Maybe you do. A lot of these are in English, but some are only Japanese. A lot of them are sort of a little bit of both. So we have this Reborn here. This is issue number 16. And by the way, these are read backwards. These ones you start on the back cover. We have issue 18 of the same series, and we have issue 17 of the same series. It's really cool, too. We actually have some that are entirely in Japanese, and we also have some that are in both. So I actually have the Japanese and the English version of the same book. So I thought that was super neat. And then these actually recognize the characters at least. We have a couple of books here that are that show, Yu-Gi-Oh! We have some Dragon Ball Z. We have some Naruto. I know a lot about these characters. My son certainly does. But yeah, these are pretty cool, and these are really big. There's a lot of story to behold here. Now, I know nothing about these, but my good friend Ben Taz, a friend of mine I've mentioned on my channel many times in the past, loves this stuff. I already promised that this stuff would be going to him. Now, there were some more traditional comic book things at this yard sale, and I picked up these. So these are the first 3 volumes of the 30th anniversary of Sandman. So these are trade paperbacks, and I've actually talked about this particular one on my channel in the past because I wanted to get into the Sandman story. This, of course, is by Neil Gaiman, art by Sam Keith, Mike Dringenberg. Friends of mine raved about this series. I watched the television show. I wanted to get into it, and I started reading these. So I gotta say this, guys, and it kills me I have to say it, but although I am a fan of Neil Gaiman's stories, I need to point out that that says nothing about how I feel about the guy as a person. Recently, he got into some hot water about some sort of icky things that he did in his personal life that he was at least accused of. that has nothing to do with my enjoyment of these comic books. It may seem silly to some of you to hear me even have to say this out loud, but the reason is, last time I mentioned Neil Gaiman on my channel, having known nothing about what was going on in his personal life, I had no idea. A couple of people called me out about it. Again, just because I bought these and I'm going to read them has nothing to do with how I feel about the guy as a person. Either way, guys, I've already read this. I have not read these two here. And again, these go for, $15, $20. I got each of these for $1, which I think is an absolute steal. Again, I'm definitely looking forward to reading these. So I got all that stuff. The Sandman books, all of those mangas, and those Funko Pops for $15, which I think is a fantastic deal. So the same day I was out actually looking for this stuff, I went to a couple other yard sales, and although I didn't really find comic books, I did find some things I could sort of leverage into comic books, and I'll explain that in a second. And probably the best find of that day, I actually went to a yard sale where I found a Sega Genesis intact in the box with everything, including the original game it came with. The guy wasn't sure if it worked, so we negotiated a price. I think I got it for $40, a bit of a gamble. I brought it home, and it worked. I actually played it on my TV. Kind of wanted to hold on to it. The kids certainly wanted me to keep it. But the very next day I was going to the flea market, and I flipped it within about 30 seconds and made a pretty good profit, which I would then in turn use to buy more comic books. So even though I didn't find comic books, at multiple places I went, guys, sometimes you find other stuff that you either collect or you can leverage into comic books. That's why I go to these. So when I say I don't have a ton of good luck at yard sales, especially this fall, that's in regard to comic books. I still got lots of other cool stuff. But there was at least one more yard sale where I had some pretty good comic book luck. But I knew this person was going to have comic books. It was actually a guy named Mike down in Connecticut, and I've actually mentioned Mike and shown him on my channel this summer because Mike, who's a viewer of the channel, was actually trying to clear out a lot of his really big collection, at least the cheaper books, and he was selling them at his house as a yard sale over the summer. Well, I featured him in a couple of videos, got some pretty good books from him, and he was having one more yard sale before the weather started to get cold, so I had to make the trip down to Connecticut, and I ended up with a pretty good little stack at the end. So first up, because Mike is a viewer of the channel, he knows what I like. He knows I like Nightcrawler, and he knows I like Justice League Dark. He actually put these aside for me. We have issues 1 through 9 of the second volume of Justice League Dark. This was a series that was started in 2018, written by James Tynion IV, art by Alvaro Martinez Bueno, and this features an all-new team lineup of Wonder Woman, Swamp Thing, Detective Chimp, Zatanna, and Man-Bat. So although I read the New 52 original Justice League Dark stories, I have not yet read the second volume. I'm excited to jump into it, and I got all of the first 9 issues, which I thought was super awesome. Next up, guys, I hate to bring up the guy's name again, but once again, we have a Sandman story. This is Sandman number 50. This is Distant Mirrors. This, of course, again, by Neil Gaiman, art by P. Craig Russell. And this is a standalone story from 1993. It's a standalone story that takes place in ancient Baghdad. And it actually was nominated for several awards, including a Will Eisner Award for Best Standalone Short Story when it came out. And again, nothing to say about the author, but I recently got this book over the summer, this exact one signed, which is pretty cool. It came with a COA, but because it was sealed, I couldn't actually read it. And if this book is highly acclaimed and it is a one-shot, I definitely want to check it out. And here we have one that is, not sealed. So I'm happy to check it out. All right, here's some really cool ones I did not know much about. This one here is the Book of Ballads and Sagas. This was published, I think, in 1995 by, Green Man Press. This is multiple sort of fantasy stories by multiple people, but we also have, more importantly, art by Charles Vess, who I love. Now, this book is super cool, guys. I mean, it has poems, it has prose in it, it has fantastic art. I knew nothing about this when I got it. I just thought it looked awesome. Fantastic art. Just really, really cool. Again, guys, if you see something you have never seen before and it, strikes your fancy, definitely pick it up if it's cheap, and that's exactly why I got this. We also have some cool older DC books I found. Here we have DC Preview Showcase number 84. It's from 1969. We have a Joe Kubert cover. We also have some Bernie Wrightson art in here. I love Bernie Wrightson. And this story here features Nightmaster, which, guys, I'm not a DC guy, but I think most DC guys wouldn't even really know the details on him. He's evidently a rock singer who takes his ancestral magic sword and becomes a champion against the occult. He fights, supernatural threats. I think he's an obscure character. Let me know down in the comments if I'm crazy and that if Nightmaster is actually like a super popular guy. I don't know, but I just thought this was a neat book from the 60s. You know, it's a 15-cent DC book. Great cover. Bernie Wrightson art. Had to pick it up. Same thing with this one. This is Tomahawk, number 126 from 1970. Once again, multiple stories in here. Tomahawk is actually a guy, he's like a frontiersman, you know, sort of like in the Wild West, kind of like a Davy Crockett type of character. He actually goes back all the way from like the Golden Age when he first started. This book, again, 1970, sort of a macabre cover of Tomahawk. That's him right there, being forced to make a decision about his guys who are strung up behind him. The reason I got this is not only was it sort of an evocative cover, but it's a Neal Adams cover. I love Neal Adams, and if you can find a cheap Neal Adams cover and it's sort of evocative and neat, you pick it up cheap. Next up, we have The Nam, number 1. This is a series started in 1986. Written by Doug Murray and pencils by Michael Golden, an artist I've actually met several times. Now, I'm not a huge like Vietnam War fan, and that's what this story is about, but I'm a big fan of Michael Golden's art in this. His art is unbelievable, and this is a book I will often show to people who've never seen comics before, just to let them flip through and appreciate the art, because it's not like anything you've seen before in a superhero book, maybe Michael Golden's other work, but it's fantastic art. If you haven't checked out this series for the art, absolutely worth doing so. If I find this book in good shape, cheap, I pick it up. This one's in exceptional shape, and not only did I get one, I got another one. Like I said, I like to give these out to people to enjoy something a little bit different, especially if they're people who don't like traditional comic books. Happy to pick up 2 copies of this. Next up, I got The Defenders number 15. It's from 1974, written by Len Wein, pencils by Sal Buscema, inks by Klaus Janson. Everyone worked on this cover. We have a John Buscema cover. We even have some of this done by John Romita, did some work on it. Everyone worked on this book. Very minor claims to fame here. Nighthawk actually has his new costume in this. But the biggest reason why I wanted this book is the Defenders are going up against Magneto and the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. I love me my X-Men. I love Magneto. You see Magneto, Blob, and Unus the Untouchable right here. Very, very cool comic book. I'm actually going to read this one. Excited to pick this one up. And then we have the Uncanny X-Men number 390. I'm still trying to finish my Uncanny run all the way up to issue 500. I'm not missing too many, but this is actually one I didn't have. This one is from 2001, written by Scott Lobdell, art by Salvador Larroca, and this is notable because it is the death of Colossus. Yeah, so leading up to this for actually a long time, a lot of the 90s, there was something called the Legacy virus. It was a virus that affected mutants, and actually they would die of it, and eventually it crossed over to actually into regular humans as well. It was a serious problem, and Colossus' sister Magic, Ileana Rasputin, actually passed away from this horrible disease. Well, in this issue, Beast finally comes up with a solution. He comes up with a cure, but there's a catch. The only way to have this cure become viable is if a mutant injects it into their body, but doing so would kill that mutant. Well, he puts it on a shelf and they all go play basketball. That's a problem for another day. But Colossus, who had just lost his sister and had seen the worst of this, and he'd also had a tough time very recently. He was a bad guy for a little while, allied with Magneto. He ends up taking the Legacy virus, which, although it ends his life, he does end up making the cure to get rid of the Legacy virus once and for all and cure lots of mutants. So this is the death of Colossus. I use death in quotation marks many times because all of you guys know it's comic book death. All these characters have come back. Of course they have. But still, guys, a very cool comic book, a notable one, and one I absolutely need for my run. Oh, and I also got one more, an X-Men number 1. Guys, whenever I find this book really cheap, I got to toss it in. I can't help it. So I got all these books from Mike here. There's like 18 books. I got them for 15 bucks. Great deal, guys, to get all these for less than $1. Very happy to do so. Mike, thank you so much. I hope you have more yard sales next summer when the weather gets nicer. You know I'll make the trip down to Connecticut and buy some more from you. So next up, we actually have some original art. But to explain where it came from, we need to go all the way back to the summer to Terrificon. Yeah, Terrificon, that really big comic show I went to, had a really great time, made 2 whole videos on it. Yeah, that show is where I got this original art, but it didn't appear in either of my Terrificon videos. And the reason is time. The thing is, guys, I film a lot when I'm making these videos. I take a ton of footage and most of it ends up on the cutting room floor. Most of it is, extra B footage, tracking shots, things like that I don't need when I'm assembling the video and I delete it. But sometimes, actually kind of often, I actually buy things and I talk about them to my camera like I'm doing right now, and then I end up cutting it. And the reason is time. Sometimes these videos just get too long. I don't think people have a very long attention span, guys. I try to aim for 20 minutes as sort of that sweet spot. I know my videos often go over that. They go closer to half an hour. This video is going to be longer, but I really don't like going longer than half an hour. Those Terrificon videos were already long, and I decided to cut these out. And it killed me at the time because these are really cool works of art. I'm excited to share them right now with all of you. And actually, now that I'm looking at all the stuff around me, I'm probably going to cut something out of this video as well. It's part of the whole making videos gig, guys. So, one of the really popular things to do at Terrificon and at most big comic shows where there's a lot of big name comic book industry people is to get original art from them. Whether it's a commission piece or it's something that's already pre-done, or maybe they're putting it in a sketchbook. A very cool thing I see people do all the time. My good friend Rohan from Absolute Game of Nerds has the best comic sketchbook I've ever seen. I've never done this before, and I saw so many people doing this. I thought it would be the first time and a great time to sort of dip my toes into the whole original art world. Well, I decided to do it with someone a little non-traditional. I actually went up to a guy named David Thorne Wenzel. Now, David Wenzel started off in traditional comic books, but he's mostly known for his comic adaptation of The Hobbit, that seminal work by J.R.R. Tolkien. Yeah, it was a comic book published by Eclipse in 1989, and it is beloved. People love his whimsical art style. He captures the mood and atmosphere of Tolkien so well. It's a really cool comic book. I decided to go up to him and just kind of check out what he was doing. And I witnessed him doing an amazing original art piece of Gandalf for this guy right there. And he wasn't charging much at all. So I was thinking of having that done. But while I was standing there sort of waiting my turn, I looked on his table and he had tons of prints. So again, not original art, it's prints, printed out stuff. But what was so cool about them is at the bottom of every print, he did a little sketch of original art. Some of them had the original sketch already on them. Other ones were blank, and you could add your own. So as I'm looking at these, I'm like, these are just too cool, but I can't decide which one to get. To which he mentioned to me, if I get more than one, he'd give me a discount. So I got 3. So these are already framed. I'm going to hold them up one at a time, starting with this one. This, of course, is Gandalf the Grey. And this is a very, very nice rendition of Gandalf. There's a ton of awesome Gandalfs there. And this is a very high quality print. As a matter of fact, it's called a giclée, which is French for fancy print. Really. Basically, you need a really high quality printer and special paper to do this. And on the back of every single one of these, Mr. Wenzel has a piece of paper explaining the process. He does this with his own printer, with his own special archival paper. They're high quality, they're high definition, and they last a little bit longer. So I thought that was really cool, lovely rendition of Gandalf. But of course, what really brings us home is, although that's a print, this is actually a pencil sketch done by Mr. Wenzel beforehand. He did this one right before the show started, and you see, of course, it is Gollum skulking about. So I love this. I thought it was awesome, but there were too many things I wanted, so I had to get more than this. The second one I got was this. So this is, of course, Smaug, the villain dragon that shows up at the end of The Hobbit. And there, again, there was a lot of awesome Smaugs there. I could not decide. These two women helped me out, pick a really good one. Two strangers, really, as well as Mr. Wenzel said this was one of his favorites because, and I didn't notice this at the time, but next to Smaug is actually Bilbo, really tiny, outlined because he's invisible. He has the ring on, but what's cool is Mr. Wenzel did a sketch showing Bilbo sort of blown up so you can see what he's doing. I just thought that was a really cool concept. It's really beautiful. You see, I put this one in a gold frame. It worked. And then the last one's the one that really jumped out to me, and it's this one. So this, now we're jumping to Lord of the Rings. We're no longer in The Hobbit. This, of course, is a Black Rider, a Nazgul on horseback. And there's just something really cool and moody about this one that really jumped out to me. But unlike the other two, this one did not yet have a sketch on the bottom. So Mr. Wenzel said, well, what would you like on there? And I said, hey, can you put the Hobbit sort of cowering below the Black Rider in the roots? Those of you that have seen The Fellowship of the Ring, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They're hiding from the Black Rider. I asked him for that, and he said, yeah, that's what everyone asked for on this one. I think it's a common request. So I got to watch him draw this right then and there. I thought that was awesome, guys. So I think these retail for $40 each if you get them individually, but because I got all 3, I think I got them for $100 total, which I think is a great deal for 3 pieces of complementary, comic book art. And guys, one of the things that really appeals to me is that this isn't traditional comic art. It's fantasy inspired. It's not your typical superheroes. That really appealed to me. This room isn't just comic books. It's also, board games and literature, Dungeons and Dragons. I have a lot of high fantasy down here. I even have a Middle Earth map up on the wall. So I thought that was pretty cool. Let me know down in the comments, guys, if you think this art is really cool. And one thing I really want to do is, he's a local guy, Wenzel. I think he lives in Connecticut, and he goes to a lot of the big shows around here. So I was thinking maybe every year I'd add another piece of art to the wall. It's actually an idea I stole from a friend of mine's daughter who actually does this with Mr. Wenzel and gets a new piece of art every year. So I think I might steal that idea. And because of that, I want to frame these kind of cheap. I got some cheapo floating frames, and they're all different. I thought it was kind of fun. I do want to point out, though, that a good friend of mine, Rick, of Has Been Collectible Toys and Comics, he's actually appeared on my channel several times. Not only does he have a great toy and comic shop, that shop is also a framing shop. Yeah, he actually does double duty, and he actually offered to frame these really nice for me. I was trying to save some money. I felt bad about having him do that, but that's not to say I haven't used his services for other things. As a matter of fact, I have a couple of awesome sort of update pieces that he recently framed for me that I definitely have to show off on the channel. So recently I did a video where I went out to Portland, Oregon to hang out with some family, go to a comic show, and hang out with some really great people in the hobby. One of those people was Steven, aka Steppo or Collecto6. He appears on tons of comic book YouTube channels. He has one of the best collections I've ever seen in my life, and he's an incredibly generous person. Well, in one of those videos, I pointed out one of the amazing gifts he gave to me, which was a signed Alex Schomburg print from the late 70s. It was such a beautiful piece, I had to have it framed by Has Been. And that's what Rick did. So here it is all framed up. We framed it in blue. The light blue matches the Alex Schomburg signature. And you see, he does really high quality work. So again, this was special enough of a piece, I had to get it professionally framed. But the other piece I want to show off is actually one Rick's had for a while. He actually wanted to do something special for me on this one. This is another piece of art gifted to me actually by the artist himself. When I showed it to Rick and said I want it framed, Rick said he wanted to say thank you to me for all the business I brought him. He wanted to do something really cool with this. So I had no idea what he was going to do, guys. And this really, he really went above and beyond. So this is an art print I got from John Mills, a local comic book artist who's fantastic. And this is what it looks like framed. So John Mills gave me this print, which is on metal. There's only 5 that he ever had made. And because it was so special, I wanted to do something cool with it. Rick said, hold my beer. And Rick decided to give it, a triple matte. He's got the gold and the black around Storm to match the print itself. And then he gave it this amazing frame right here, which looks like, the marble looks like lightning bolts. I mean, it's an unbelievable piece. But to really cap it off, guys, he actually put museum glass on it. A very expensive piece of museum glass, which the benefit is it doesn't really show any glare whatsoever. So we went way above and beyond on this, guys. And although, he certainly wants to give me great deals and all this stuff, I can't accept a piece like this. So he said, I'll tell you what, he's like, I can pay him back for these frames with comic books. He is always looking for comics and toys for the shop. He goes through his inventory quick, and he said he will accept comics and toys as payment for framing. And that's not only an offer for me, it's an offer for anyone who's out here in Western Massachusetts. Yeah, if you had someone to give you some really good high quality framing, yeah, Rick's your guy. And if you got comics and toys to trade, he will absolutely accept that in payment. I thought I would show that off, guys. I gotta find some really cool places to hang this down here in my basement, guys. You can imagine my wall space is getting really, really small. Pretty cool. Let me know down in the comments how you think these turned out. So there you go, guys. Head on down to the comments. Let me know which of my pickups you like the best. I have way too much stuff to hold up on camera, so you'll have to use your memory or go back and review the footage. Let me know which of my comics you like the best, and certainly let me know what you think of that original art. And in the meantime, keep hunting for comic books in strange and unusual places yourself. As you can tell, guys, you can find this stuff absolutely anywhere. You just gotta keep on hunting. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you all in the next one.